The traditional therapy hadn't worked. Medication dulled the edges but didn't erase the images burned into his mind. The twisted metal of their car, the rain-slicked highway, the police officer's somber expression. That's when his therapist, Dr. Morrison, had suggested Morpheus, a controversial new treatment that used neural mapping and dream simulation to isolate and remove traumatic memories. The procedure wasn't cheap, and it wasn't FDA approved, operating in the gray zone of experimental medicine. But James was desperate. What was money when you couldn't function? What was caution when every day was agony? James Harding? A woman in a white coat appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. She was young, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled into a severe bun. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. We spoke on the phone. Are you ready?" Ready to forget. Ready to stop hurting. Ready to be anyone but the man who'd lost everything. Yes. Dr. Chen led him through a maze of corridors to a room that looked more like a spa than a medical facility. In the center was a chair that resembled a massage table, surrounded by equipment that hummed softly. Monitors displayed scrolling data, and a helmet-like device hung suspended above the chair. "The procedure is simple," Dr. Chen explained, her voice professionally soothing. "We'll map your neural pathways to identify the traumatic memories you want to address. Then, using targeted dream simulations, we'll guide your brain to process and ultimately dissociate from those memories. You'll remember that you had a wife and daughter, but the emotional pain associated with their deaths will be significantly reduced. Think of it as editing a video. We're not deleting the footage, just removing the parts that cause distress." James nodded, though he only half understood the technical explanation. He didn't care about the science. He cared about the result. How long does it take? The mapping takes about an hour. The dream simulation itself will feel like a full night's sleep, though it's only 3 to 4 hours. You'll wake up feeling rested, and the effects should be immediate. Some patients report mild disorientation for the first few hours, but that's normal. Your brain is adjusting to the reconfigured neural pathways. James climbed into the chair. It was surprisingly comfortable, the padding molding to his body. Dr. Chen lowered the helmet onto his head, and he felt the cool touch of sensors against his scalp. She moved around him efficiently, attaching additional monitors to his chest and wrists. "What you'll experience will feel very real," she continued, typing something into a computer. "Dream simulations are indistinguishable from reality while you're in them. Your subconscious will work through the trauma in symbolic ways. Some patients see their memories replaying. Others experience entirely abstract scenarios. Either way, the outcome is the same: reduced emotional association with the traumatic event. Will I forget them completely, Emma and Lily? The question hurt to ask, but he needed to know. Dr. Chen's expression softened. No, you'll remember them. You'll remember your life together. But when you think about their deaths, it won't be agonizing anymore. It'll be like remembering a sad movie instead of reliving your worst nightmare. Does that make sense? It did, and it was exactly what James wanted, to remember the good without being destroyed by the bad. Close your eyes, Dr. Chen instructed. Try to relax. The neural mapping will begin in a moment. You might feel some tingling sensations, but nothing painful. James closed his eyes. He heard Dr. Chen's footsteps retreating, the soft click of the door closing. Then silence, except for the quiet hum of the machines. The tingling started at his temples, spreading across his scalp like a gentle electric current. It wasn't unpleasant, almost soothing. His breathing slowed. His thoughts began to drift. The room fell away. He was falling. Not falling, sinking. Into water? Into darkness? He couldn't tell. But he wasn't afraid. The sensation was almost pleasant, like being slowly cooled into deep sleep. Images began to flash. Emma's smile on their wedding day. Lily's first steps. The three of them at the beach, building sandcastles. Happy memories, untainted. Then the crash. Metal screaming, glass shattering, his own voice screaming their names. The scene fractured, pixelating like a corrupted video file. James felt himself being pulled away from it, the horror dissipating. The dream shifted. He was in a different car now, driving through a city he didn't recognize. No rain, no accident, just an ordinary drive. A voice spoke, not out loud, but inside his head. Let it go, James. You don't need to carry this anymore. He wanted to release the weight that had been crushing him for 6 months, wanted to breathe without his chest feeling like it was full of broken glass. I'm ready, he whispered into the darkness. Take it away. The dream dissolved into white light, so bright it should have hurt but didn't. James felt something fundamental shift inside him, like a part of his mind being carefully, surgically removed. And then, nothing. Just peaceful, dreamless sleep. When consciousness returned, it came slowly. James became aware of the chair beneath him, the helmet still on his head, the steady beep of monitors. But something felt wrong. Not painful, just off, like waking up in a hotel room and forgetting where you are for a moment. He opened his eyes. The room was different. Still medical, but darker. The equipment looked older, more industrial. And there was a man standing over him instead of Dr. Chen. A man with graying hair and tired eyes, wearing a rumpled white coat that had seen better days. Welcome back, Marcus, the man said. Marcus? James tried to sit up, but his body felt heavy, uncooperative. Where's Dr. Chen? And who's Marcus? The man frowned, glancing at a monitor. Disorientation is expected. Your name is Marcus Reed, and I'm Dr. Benjamin Walsh. You've been under for about 4 hours. How do you feel? Confused. I'm James Harding. I came here for memory therapy. He stopped. Something was very wrong. His voice sounded different, rougher, deeper, and when he looked down at his hands, he saw unfamiliar scars across his knuckles. Scars that hadn't been there this morning. What did you do to me? James, Marcus, tried to stand, nearly fell, caught himself against the chair. His body felt strange, slightly taller, heavier. What the hell is happening? Dr. Walsh's expression shifted from concern to something darker. Fear? Guilt? Marcus, I need you to stay calm. The procedure, there were complications. What do you remember about why you're here? I'm here because my wife and daughter died. Because I couldn't handle the grief. Because I needed to forget. The words felt right and wrong simultaneously. He did remember a wife and daughter, but when he tried to picture their faces, the images were fuzzy, like looking at them through fogged glass. Your wife Sarah and daughter Emma died 2 years ago, Dr. Walsh said carefully. You've been coming here for treatment. This was your 5th session. No. My wife's name was Emma. My daughter was Lily. And I've never been here before. This is my 1st session. With Dr. Chen. Where is she? James's heart was racing now, panic clawing at his chest. Dr. Walsh moved to a computer, pulled up a file. Look at the screen. James stumbled forward, looked at the monitor. It showed a patient file for Marcus Reed, 42 years old. The photo was him, but not him. The man in the picture had his features, but looked harder, older, and there were dates. Multiple treatment dates spanning 2 years. This is wrong. This is all wrong. I'm 37. I've never been here before. My name is James Harding, and I work as an accountant. And my wife Emma and daughter Lily died 6 months ago in a car accident. He was shouting now, backing away from the monitor, from Dr. Walsh, from this nightmare that didn't make sense. Marcus, please. Stop calling me that. James looked around frantically for an exit, spotted a door, lunged for it. Dr. Walsh tried to grab him, but James, or whoever he was now, was faster, stronger. He burst through the door into a hallway that was definitely not the clean, modern corridor he'd walked through before. This hallway was dim, institutional, flickering fluorescent lights, peeling paint. It looked like an abandoned hospital wing. Where the hell was he? James ran. He had no idea where he was going, just knew he needed to get out. The hallway branched and he took a left, then a right, descended a stairwell, crashed through a fire exit into blinding daylight. He stopped, gasping, squinting against the sun. The parking lot was wrong. Where was his Honda Civic? Where was the sleek building of Morpheus Therapeutic Solutions? This structure behind him looked like it had been condemned years ago. A crumbling brick building with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. And his car. There was a beat-up Ford truck parked near the exit. keys in his pocket that he didn't remember putting there, dangling from a keychain that said Reed Construction. James's hands were shaking as he looked down at them again. The scars, and there were more now that he really looked. A long one across his forearm, another on his palm. These weren't fresh, they were old, healed, like they'd been there for years. His reflection caught in the truck's side mirror. James forced himself to look. The face staring back was his, but older, harder, with a scar across his left eyebrow that he'd never had. And his hair. It was longer, darker, no gray at the temples like there'd been this morning. "This isn't real," James whispered. "This is still the dream. I'm still in the simulation." But it felt real. Too real. The sun was hot on his face. The smell of gasoline and garbage from the alley beside the building was sickeningly authentic. And his body, this body that felt like his but wasn't quite, ached in ways his 37-year-old accountant body never had. His lower back hurt. His right knee twinged when he moved. These were the pains of a man who did physical labor, not someone who sat at a desk all day. A voice called out from the building. "Marcus." "Wait!" Dr. Walsh appeared in the doorway, looking panicked. "Please, we need to talk. This isn't what you think." James didn't wait. He climbed into the truck, found it already running, or managed to start it. He couldn't tell which, and floored it out of the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, he saw Dr. Walsh standing alone, defeated, growing smaller as James drove faster. Where was he going? James had no idea, but the truck seemed to know. His hands moving on the wheel with practiced familiarity, taking turns without conscious thought, muscle memory guiding him through streets he didn't recognize in a city that wasn't his. He ended up at an apartment building, run down, working class. The truck pulled into a parking spot like it had done so 1,000 times. James sat there, engine idling, trying to make sense of any of this. The glove compartment. Maybe there would be something there that explained. James popped it open and found the truck's registration. Marcus Reed. His new address, the one he was apparently parked in front of, and a photograph, creased and worn, tucked behind the registration. James pulled it out with trembling hands. The photo showed him, or Marcus, with his arm around a woman, pretty blonde, laughing at something off camera, and beside them, a girl about 8 years old, with the same blonde hair, making a silly face at the camera. On the back, written in faded ink, "Sarah, me, and Emma. Summer 2019. Marcus's family. The family this body, this life, remembered losing 2 years ago. But James' family, his Emma, his Lily, they were real. He could remember them, couldn't he? He closed his eyes, tried to picture Emma's face. It was there, but blurry, like someone had smudged the photograph. And Lily, was her hair brown or blonde? How old had she been? 6? 7? The details were slipping away even as he tried to hold on to them. No, no, no. James clutched the photograph. His photograph. Marcus's photograph. This isn't real. They erased the wrong memories. His phone rang. James, Marcus, whoever he was, pulled it from his pocket. The screen showed Tommy calling. He didn't know anyone named Tommy, but his thumb hit accept before he could think about it. "Mark, where the hell are you? We're waiting at the site. You were supposed to be here an hour ago." The voice was male, irritated, familiar in a way that made no sense. I don't. James couldn't form words. "You okay, man? You sound weird." "I'm not Marcus," James managed. "My name is James Harding. I don't know who you are. I don't know where I am. I don't." The line went silent for a moment. Then, "Marcus, this isn't funny. If you're having another episode, you need to call Dr. Walsh. Remember what he said about dissociation." "Another episode? What are you talking about?" "Jesus Christ, Mark. Just stay where you are. I'm coming to you. Are you at home?" James looked at the apartment building. "I think so. Don't move. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. James sat in the truck, trying to breathe, trying to think. What the hell had Morpheus done to him? Some kind of experimental treatment that swapped memories, created false ones, made him think he was someone else? Or, and this thought was worse, what if Marcus Reed was real? What if James Harding was the false identity? What if the therapy hadn't erased his pain, but but revealed that his entire life was a delusion, and he'd been Marcus all along. No, that was insane. He was James. He remembered his apartment in Seattle, his job at Hartman and Associates, his morning routine, Emma's perfume, Lily's favorite bedtime story. These were real memories. They had to be. But they were fading. Even now, as he tried to hold on to them, they grew dimmer, like trying to remember a dream after waking. 20 minutes later, a pickup truck pulled up beside Marcus's. A man got out, mid-40s, stocky, with a concerned expression. "Mark?" James opened his door slowly, stepped out. "I don't know who you are." The man's face fell. Tommy Valdez. We've been best friends since high school. We run the construction company together." "Marcus, what's happening? Did Walsh screw something up?" "I'm not Marcus. My name is James Harding. I came to a place called Morpheus Therapeutic Solutions this morning for memory treatment. I wanted to forget that my wife and daughter died. But when I woke up, everything was different. I'm different. This body," James gestured helplessly at himself, "isn't mine. These scars, this place, none of this is real." Tommy studied him for a long moment. Then, carefully, "Marcus, Dr. Walsh warned you this might happen. The therapy can cause temporary identity confusion. You are Marcus Reed. You've been Marcus Reed for 42 years. You lost your wife Sarah and daughter Emma in a house fire 2 years ago. You've been undergoing experimental therapy to deal with the trauma. Sometimes the treatment makes you dissociate, makes you think you're someone else, someone who didn't lose them." The words hit like physical blows. "No, you're wrong. I'm James. I've always been James." "Then tell me about James's life, your job, your address, your phone number." Tommy pulled out his phone. "Call someone who knows James Harding. Prove to both of us that he exists." James fumbled for his phone, opened the contacts. There should be dozens of numbers, co-workers, friends, Emma's parents, his sister. But the contact list showed. James felt reality tilting. Then where's James Harding's phone? Where's his life? Someone must have. "There is no James Harding," Tommy said gently. "Or if there is, he's not you. You're Marcus Reed. You have been since the day you were born. The identity confusion is a side effect of the therapy. It's happened before. Last time, you thought you were someone named David. Before that, Robert. The therapist said your brain creates these alternate identities as a coping mechanism, a way to escape the grief. No, you're lying. This is part of the simulation. I haven't woken up yet. You're awake, Mark. This is reality. Your reality. The life you're remembering, James's life, that's the dream. That's what the therapy creates, a fantasy where you never lost them, but it's not real." James backed away, shaking his head. But as he did, he caught his reflection in the truck's window again. Marcus Reed looked back at him. Older, scarred, tired, a man who'd lived a hard life. And suddenly, James felt something else bleeding through. Memories that weren't his, or were they? Standing on a construction site, the weight of a hammer in his hand. Tommy's laugh at some joke. A different apartment, one he'd shared with Sarah before she died. Emma's voice calling, "Daddy," as she ran toward him. "I remember her," James whispered. "Emma, my daughter. But she had blonde hair, not brown, and she was 8, not 6. She was 8 when she died," Tommy confirmed. "House fire. You were at work. Electrical fault in the wiring. Sarah tried to get her out, but..." His voice broke. "You found them, Mark. Both of them. The therapist said that trauma fractured your mind, made you create alternate versions of events, different scenarios where they didn't die, or died differently. Your brain trying to make sense of something senseless." The memories were solidifying now. The fire, the flames, running into the burning house against the firefighters' protests. Finding Sarah in the hallway, already gone from smoke inhalation, and Emma in her bedroom, clutching her teddy bear. The image was seared into his mind, Marcus's mind, more vividly than any memory of a car crash in the rain. Oh God. James, Marcus, whoever he was, fell to his knees on the pavement. They both died, Sarah and Emma, but not in a car accident, in a fire. Yes. Tommy knelt beside him, hand on his shoulder. and you've been trying to forget ever since. The experimental therapy was supposed to help, but sometimes it makes things worse, makes you forget who you really are. What about James Harding, his wife Emma, and daughter Lily? The car crash, Morpheus Therapeutic Solutions, Dr. Chen? Even as he asked, the details were becoming less clear. Had Dr. Chen been young or old? What had the waiting room looked like? He couldn't quite remember. Dr. Walsh works out of the old Westview Hospital building, the one they closed down 5 years ago. He uses it for his experimental practice because the rent's cheap and the oversight is minimal. You've been seeing him for 2 years. His treatment is controversial. Uses a combination of hypnosis, neural stimulation, and guided hallucination to help patients process trauma. Sometimes it works. Sometimes he gestured helplessly. Marcus, because James realized with creeping horror that he was Marcus, had always been Marcus, looked at his scarred hands. These weren't scars from an accountant's life. These were from construction work, from years of physical labor, from punching walls after Sarah died, from trying to save his daughter from a fire that couldn't be stopped. "I'm Marcus Reed," he said slowly, testing the words. "You're Marcus Reed," Tommy confirmed. "I lost my wife and daughter in a house fire 2 years ago." "You did. And I've been undergoing experimental therapy that makes me hallucinate alternate lives where they died differently, or where I'm someone else entirely, someone who didn't fail to save them." Tommy's expression crumpled. "You didn't fail, Mark. There was nothing you could do. The fire department said the house was fully involved by the time you got there. Sarah and Emma were already gone. Going in after them nearly killed you too." Marcus looked down at his arms, saw more scars he hadn't noticed before. Burns, healed but visible, from running into the fire, from trying to save them, from failing. How many times has this happened? How many people have I thought I was? This is the 4th major episode. Usually you come back to yourself after a few hours. Remember who you are, where you are. Dr. Walsh says it's progress, your mind working through the trauma by experiencing it in different contexts. Like your subconscious is trying to find a version of events you can live with. And have I found a version I can live with? Tommy was quiet for a moment. Then, "No, not yet. That's why you keep going back. Why you keep trying different therapies, different approaches. You're looking for peace, Mark. For a way to carry this without it destroying you." Marcus stood slowly, his body aching in ways James has never had. Construction worker aches, fire-damaged lungs that struggled in the cold. The physical toll of grief manifested in flesh and bone. "Take me home," he said quietly. "My real home." "Where Sarah and Emma lived." Tommy hesitated. "Are you sure? You haven't been back since the fire. After they rebuilt, you couldn't stand to look at it." "I need to see it. Need to make this real." They drove in Tommy's truck through a city that Marcus's muscle memory knew, but James's consciousness didn't. Past landmarks that were familiar and foreign simultaneously. Through neighborhoods where Marcus had lived for decades, but James had never seen. They stopped in front of a modest house in a working-class area. The house had clearly been rebuilt. New siding, new roof, new windows. But the foundation was the same. The oak tree in the front yard was the same, now with a memorial plaque at its base. Marcus got out of the truck slowly, walked to the tree, read the plaque, "In loving memory of Sarah and Emma Reed, forever in our hearts." The dam broke. All the grief that James Harding had been trying to escape, it wasn't his to escape. It was Marcus's, and it came flooding back with suffocating force. The smell of smoke, Sarah's voice on the phone saying she smelled burning, the 30-minute drive home that felt like hours, the flames, the screams, finding them. Marcus fell to his knees at the base of the tree and sobbed. Not James Harding's controlled, civilized grief. Marcus Reed's raw, brutal, soul-destroying anguish. The grief he'd been trying to therapy and hallucinate and drug away for 2 years. The grief that had splintered his mind into fragments, creating other lives, other losses, other identities, anything but facing the truth. Tommy sat beside him, didn't speak, just present, like he'd probably done 100 times before. When the storm passed, Marcus sat back against the tree, exhausted. How long was I James this time? The session started this morning. It's been about 6 hours. It felt like months, years. I remember his whole life, his apartment, his job, meeting Emma, his Emma, not mine, their wedding, Lily being born, the car accident, 6 months of grief. All of it felt completely real. Dr. Walsh says the brain creates entire narratives to support the dissociative identity, fills in backstory, creates memories, makes it consistent. Your mind is incredibly good at lying to itself when the truth is unbearable. Is that what I'm doing? Lying to myself? You're surviving. That's what you're doing. However you can. Marcus looked at the rebuilt house. Do people live there now? Family, with 2 kids, nice people. They didn't know about the fire when they bought it. When they found out, they planted that tree, added the memorial, said they wanted Sarah and Emma remembered. That's good, better than it sitting empty, better than it being a shrine. Marcus pulled himself to his feet, every joint protesting. I should stop the therapy, stop trying to escape this. Or you should keep trying, keep looking for a way through. Tommy stood too. Grief this big, you can't just accept it and move on. That's not how it works. Maybe creating these other lives, these other losses, maybe that's how your mind processes something this massive. Little pieces at a time, different angles, until one day you've processed enough that you can live with what's left. You really believe that? I believe you're still here, still fighting. That matters. They drove back to Marcus's apartment in silence. When they arrived, Tommy walked him to the door. You going to be okay tonight? Want me to stay? No, I need to sit with this, with me, with Marcus. He looked at his friend. Thank you for coming, for believing me even when I didn't believe myself. Always, brother. Call me if you need anything, and maybe call Dr. Walsh. Let him know you're back. Marcus nodded, though he wasn't sure he'd call, wasn't sure what else the doctor could tell him that would make this bearable. Inside the apartment, Marcus found more evidence of his real life. Photos of Sarah and Emma on every surface. Construction company paperwork, a drawer full of sympathy cards from the funeral, and in the bedroom, still hanging in the closet, Sarah's clothes. Her favorite sweater, the dress she'd worn on their last anniversary. Marcus sat on the bed, their bed, and held the sweater to his face. It didn't smell like her anymore. That had faded months ago. But the texture was the same, the color she'd loved, real, tangible, proof that she'd existed. His phone rang. Dr. Walsh. Marcus answered. I remember now. I'm Marcus Reed. My wife and daughter died in a fire. I've been dissociating, creating alternate identities to cope with the trauma. Good. That's good, Marcus. I'm sorry the session went that way. Sometimes the neural simulation creates unintended identity overlaps. We're still refining the process. How many times have you done this to people? Created false memories? Made them think they're someone else? A pause. Then, carefully, the therapy is experimental. The goal is to help patients process trauma through controlled dissociative experiences. Most patients understand it's a simulation, but your grief is so profound that sometimes you can't separate the simulation from reality. You want the alternate identity to be real, to escape being Marcus. So James Harding never existed. His wife Emma and daughter Lily. The car accident. Morpheus Therapeutic Solutions. Dr. Chen. All of it was just in my head. Yes, your mind constructed an elaborate fantasy. The good news is you came back. Some patients get lost in the dissociative identity for days or weeks. And the bad news? The bad news is that you'll probably create another one. Your mind is looking for any escape from the reality of losing Sarah and Emma. Until you can face that directly, you'll keep fragmenting into other selves, other lives, other traumas that feel more manageable than your actual one. Marcus looked around the apartment at the evidence of a life destroyed. What if I don't want to face it? What if I'd rather be James or David or Robert? What if any other life is better than this one? Then you'll spend the rest of your life running, and eventually you'll forget how to come back. The dissociative identities will become more real than Marcus Reed. You'll lose yourself completely. Maybe that's better. Maybe. But I don't think you believe that, or you wouldn't have called me Marcus just now. You'd be insisting you're James. Marcus was quiet. Dr. Walsh was right. As much as he wanted to be anyone else, as much as James Harding's grief felt easier to carry than Marcus Reed's, he knew who he really was. The scars on his arms wouldn't let him forget. The ache in his chest when he looked at Sarah's photo was too specific, too real to be anything but his own. "What do I do now?" Marcus asked quietly. "You sit with it. You let yourself be Marcus. You let yourself remember Sarah and Emma. You let yourself hurt. And when it becomes too much, we try again. Find another way to process it, another simulation, another approach, until one day, maybe, you can think about them without wanting to stop existing. That day feels very far away. It is, but it exists. I promise you, Marcus. You will survive this. You'll carry it forever, but you'll survive it." After the call ended, Marcus sat in the dark apartment, Sarah's sweater in his lap, and let himself remember. Not as James, not as David or Robert or whoever else his mind had created, but as Marcus Reed, husband, father, construction worker, a man who'd loved two people with his whole heart and lost them both in one terrible night. He remembered the good things: Sarah's laugh, Emma's terrible jokes, Sunday morning pancakes, the fort they'd built in the living room that stayed up for weeks because Emma wouldn't let them take it down, the way Sarah hummed while she cooked, Emma's fierce hug when he came home from work. And he remembered the bad, the smoke, the flames, the desperate, futile attempt to save them. The moment he'd realized they were gone, the funeral, the empty house, the 2 years since, trying to survive a grief that felt unsurvivable. It hurt. God, it hurt. Like being crushed, like drowning, like every metaphor for unbearable pain happening simultaneously. But it was his pain, Marcus's pain, real, undeniable. And maybe that was the point. Maybe the therapy, the dissociative episodes, the alternate identities, maybe they were all ways of trying to deny the undeniable, to make bearable what couldn't be borne. But denial only compressed the grief, made it denser. Harder, facing it head-on was agony. Marcus stood, carried Sarah's sweater to the bedroom, laid it carefully on her pillow. Then he pulled out his phone and opened the photo gallery. It was full of pictures of Sarah and Emma, hundreds of them. His real memories documented and saved. He looked at them until his eyes burned. Let himself remember not some alternate fantasy version, but the actual people. Their flaws and quirks, and the ordinary magic of their lives together. The reality of what he'd lost. Tomorrow, maybe he'd call Dr. Walsh again. Try another session. Or maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he'd just wake up and go to the construction site and build something with his scarred hands and try to make it through one more day as Marcus Reed. He didn't know, but tonight at least, he knew who he was, and that was something. Marcus Reed climbed into bed, Sarah's sweater beside him, and closed his eyes. His mind didn't splinter into other identities, didn't create other lives, didn't offer escape. Just gave him darkness and memory and the slow, painful work of existing in a world without the people he loved most. It wasn't peace, it wasn't healing, but it was real. And for tonight, that was enough.